All right, guys, I'm Kyle with Rhino. This is our Q&A. Thank you for tuning in. A lot of you guys have been asking questions on social media, phone calls, emails, and so we wanted to do a long form Q&A. And honestly, this video is going to be long. It's going to be full of your questions, and that's Jeremy's fault. He's our production manager. I wanted to do 6 or 7 of these live, but we figured it'd be better to have literally all of your questions to everyone who responded to the email blast we sent out. So grab a microwavable pizza and a beer and check out all of the links to the specific questions down below if you get bored. Let's do it. So starting out, I want to answer one of the biggest questions is, when are you going to start shipping orders? I'm asking that question every day too. So we just got confirmation from our circuit board manufacturer. You guys have been following along with us on our Kickstarter updates and our email updates if you have pre-ordered, and we've had some issues that we've had to resolve. But we are getting circuit boards in. First batch on September 3rd is confirmed, and so we'll be shipping out in the few weeks after that. So if you place an order today, expect it to come sometime in September. That's all I can really say right now. When do you expect to have Arc 2 and the new system in normal stock? I believe I just answered that question. Let's call it end of September, early October, just to be safe. For Arc 2 competition winners, when can they expect to receive the units? What is included in the base pack for the Arc 2 for competition winners? So those are going to be shipping, same timeline, end of September, early October. What you'll receive is the Arc 2 unit by itself. So it pans, it tilts, has all the features, connects to the app. It does not come with a slider, does not come with a motor, and does not come with follow focus, but it does include a charger that has international adapters with it. So anywhere in the world, you can charge the bad boy and start filming with it. Let's talk about promotions. What upgrade programs do you offer for customers who already have Motion and Arc 1? Great question. I want to touch on this a little bit. Anyone who's ever bought anything from us has funded this project. Probably, when we started Rhino, this was ultimately the vision, was to be able to capture incredible footage. And I think with this product and some of the features we're going to be releasing during the fall and next year, it's really the full culmination of our vision as a company for motion control. So I'm just saying thank you. And for you guys, if you send in, let's say you have Motion, we will give you 10% off Arc 2 itself and any of its accessories. If you have Motion and Arc, send in both and you'll get 20% off. So that is our trade up program to Arc 2. I'll drop a link down below in the description for you guys to read an article about that. Do you still offer Switch and Save, where you get $500 off for sending in a third-party slider? Yes, it's a new-ish program, but it's basically the same instructions and method that we did previously. Send us any slider that you have. We don't really care what it is. We actually donate all these sliders to a local charity. And so send it in, buy Arc 2, and then we will send you a coupon code for $500 off, which you can use for a hard shell case, a motor, a slider. We don't really care. Gear it out however you want. Is there a lifetime guarantee? So all of our products have a lifetime guarantee. On the hardware aspect, there is a 1-year warranty on the electronics. If you want to, there is an extended electronics warranty that you can buy, which extends the lifetime of the product, literally. So say 4 years from now, we have a new product out and your Arc 2 dies and we don't have any Arc 2s left in stock to sell you, we will give you the new one for free. So check that out. If you buy from a dealer, it is available for purchase within 30 days of your purchase at a dealer. So come to our site, buy that from us within 30 days. Let's say you pre-order on B&H's website. Where can I buy it without paying like 40% extra when I want your products in the Netherlands? So that is a really good question. I can't officially announce this yet, but I'm kind of going to. Starting this fall, we're going to be setting up a European store where you can buy your products pretty much duty-free. If you're VAT registered, you won't have to pay for that, and shipping will be free pretty much anywhere in the EU. So you can wait to buy your product until then, and it'll be a lot cheaper than buying from us, paying, God knows what for shipping, $100 and then all the import fees. So I don't really want to say this, our sales guy would kill me, but don't buy yet. Wait until the fall, because that'll be a fun thing. Next question. We currently have an Evo system with Motion, Arc, 24-inch and 42-inch carbon rails. What sort of compatibility will we have using the new Ultimate Slider bundle with our current gear? New gear to old, old gear to new. Also, will there be a slider plate upgrade for the old 24-inch carbon rails to receive the new quick mount system? That is a mouthful, and I'll probably mess this up. I'll try to answer part of it here. Again, there'll be another link down below that links to an FAQ that answers this in much more detail than I'll go into. Let's talk about motors, because that's where we get most of the question with this. You will be able to use your old Evo motor with Arc 2. You will not be able to use the high torque motor with your old Evo controller. We use different electronics. The old controller cannot drive the new high torque motor. It can drive the new high speed motor. So it's confusing. That's one of the questions. Rails are still all interchangeable. So if you do upgrade your rails, to answer the question about the slider plate upgrade for carbon rails, it's not really possible. The inserts on the ends that are threaded that allow the system to be interchangeable, those are all glued in with crazy epoxy. So we'd have to cut off the rails, unscrew the plate. It's a nightmare, and it's really not possible. So I'm sorry. If you do want the new tripod quick mount though, you can keep all of your other slider components and upgrade the rails, and you'll be good to go. What if I own a slider by another company? Gasp. It's not going to answer your question. Moving on. I'm just kidding. Will this work on that? Example, an Edelkrone slider 1V2. Sorry to ask, but I have very little slider knowledge and want this, but keen for the smaller Edelkrone slider. That's a great question. It will only work on the Rhino system. If you look at our gear, it's very much like an Apple ecosystem. It's all designed to work together and not really play with other sliders, because the user experience is much better when we control the whole thing. So either love it, or hate it, or become a fanboy like Apple, because they're awesome. I've recommended your Rove Pro and Rove Mobile to a few people. Would this work on that little slider? Key adjective, little. This thing weighs 5 pounds. It holds up to 15 pounds and giant cinema rigs. No, I'm sorry. It's a completely different market and a different strategy. Is there going to be an Android app version? Why does only accommodate iOS? That's how it's written. Yes, there is going to be an Android app version. We do not have a release date for it, and in the past I have promised a release date for Android, and we weren't able to live up to that. So just know that it is in the works. And the way that we design, we have a lot of YouTube comments on some of our app features saying, you guys hate Android users. The rest of the world uses Android. That's very true. We have an extremely talented iOS developer in-house, but we currently don't do Android in-house. So we basically build out an app in iOS, and then we rebuild the app completely from the ground up based on the features of the iOS on Android. So it's a completely new development cycle, but based off of the features and user experience of the iOS app. So it's not just a clone that's super easy and cheap. It's basically two completely separate apps. So that's why we do iOS first, Android comes later. So stay tuned for that. When we're close, we'll start talking about it on social media. Until then, there's not really an ETA. Are there plans to have a physical wired remote with joysticks to control the head and slider for more precise movements away from the head? Great question. This was actually one of our major questions when we were developing the system. Motion was cool because you had this box that you had a wheel that you would turn, and it would turn move the slider back and forth really smoothly, really precisely. And there's actually other products in the market that use joystick controllers to control the movement. So we're basically treating the iPhone as a controller. And there is a mode that we haven't really talked about at all, but it's available on shipping called Remote. And it basically gives you this functionality of a gamepad type control for real time. Even in that, you can loop the slider because it's almost impossible to try to control 4 different axes simultaneously. So in that, you can loop the slider and you can actually lock different axes. So let's say you want to slide and only pan, you can do that, or you can only pan and change your focus. So it's a really cool feature. So no, there's not going to be a wired controller. Think of the app as your wireless controller. Would I need the Rhino Focus if I have a Canon 6D Mark II, awesome camera by the way, that has great autofocus and allows touchscreen focus point changes? Great question. So what we're doing right now is we have a 2-camera setup with automatic face tracking going. I'm not really moving around much. I mean, you can kind of see me moving and they're tracking me. These cameras have cinema lenses on them. They're not autofocus, but I'm not moving around relative to the camera's distance. So we have our focus point set and we're good. So in a case like this, you don't need focus at all. You don't even need the 6D. The 6D is what we filmed our automatic face tracking video with, which was great for autofocus. Or if you're vlogging and you're moving closer and further away from the camera and your focus point is changing, right now the only way to accomplish that is with a great autofocus system like some of the newer Sonys or the Canon 6D Mark II. So the question is, what do I need focus for? And I mean, if you look at what you use a slider for, it's for precise, repeatable motion. So let's say I'm doing a push-in or a rack focus. Autofocus hunts still. It doesn't know, it's not intelligent enough to know, I want to rack from this point to this point. And so when you're doing that kind of ultra precise shot, you can keyframe your focus and you don't have to do a focus pull manually, because we all know that takes 4 or 5 tries. With the new system, you can do it in one take. It's really nice. The other one is for time-lapse. And this has been one of my dreams, is being able to keyframe your focus during a time-lapse, and you can't do that with an autofocus lens. So the anecdote that I've used is flower to mountain. So during the day, I want to be filming a flower up at Mount Rainier, and then I want to slowly start panning and changing my focus to the stars as they come out to the Milky Way at night. And so that's going to be possible on the new system, where an autofocus lens wouldn't do that. So 2 answers: precise, repeatable moves, and time-lapse. Other than that, use your autofocus. Honestly, it works incredibly well on those cameras. One of the biggest questions that we get is, what does Arc 2 sound like? Rhino Motion was really quiet, Rove was a little bit more noisy. Now, Arc 2, our goal was to make it virtually silent. And so I want to show you exactly what it sounds like. I have a Rode NTG3 boom mic above me. I don't think you can hear it at all. And I have a Zoom H1 handy recorder that I'm just gonna put all around Arc 2 and the motor so you can hear what it sounds like at interview speeds. So I'll stop talking now and we'll cut to this audio. So I personally can't hear anything. We'll have to see what the edit sounds like with this, maybe boost the gain, but it's virtually silent. So if you have any questions about whether this will get into your actual audio, I would say probably not. We're gonna do some more tests that are more detailed than just an H1, but for right now, this should answer your questions. Arc 2 is pretty much silent. All right, for the next question, I hope for a better support for firmware, etc. The Rhino Motion never got centimeters as units or kind of macro mode. The firmware didn't get any better new features. So to help answer that, I want to bring in Christian, our iOS developer. He is spearheading a lot of the new development on Arc 2.
Hello, Kyle.
What's up, man?
Not much.
You hear the question?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've definitely been designing the firmware and the app development side of things with a much more flexible architecture. So what that's going to do is that's just going to make it easier to get out bug fixes quickly. We'll be able to add updates fairly quickly, and yeah, it's much more, I guess, modular type style, just a flexible architecture that's just going to help out with being able to get stuff out to users.
Awesome. And I can speak a little bit to the product roadmap. Arc 2 is designed to be upgraded, if you will, through both firmware updates, but primarily different app features that you can access over Bluetooth and have new and improved controls in new modes. So our goal with the unit is to come out with new features constantly, and for that we need your guys' feedback. So as soon as you get your unit, please let us know. We'll have a whole system set up on the site to get your feedback and prioritize those features. All right, next question. Before that, I think your makeup needs a little bit of touching up.
Of course.
Yeah.
I've got a little shine.
So Brittany, come on out. Yeah, he's shining a little bit.
Shiny.
All right, yeah, go ahead. His forehead is,
Yep.
yeah.
Get in there.
Cool. All right, that looks great. All right. So we kind of demonstrated part of the answer to this question, but I'll read it. I love that this will track the subject, but what if there's more than one person, 2 or 3 person interview, or people standing, moving in the background? You might be filming an influencer in a shopping mall. It's a great question.
Yeah, so it's definitely designed to take into account multiple faces. It's going to try to split the difference between height differences, with where the subjects are standing or sitting. But something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces would be great. Something like a crowded mall would be a little bit more difficult because faces are going to be coming in and out. But in a more controlled situation, you'll be able to have multiple faces, and it's going to account for that really well. So
one thing to note, I don't know if you can see this in the footage in the video, when you do have multiple people entering and leaving the frame, say when Christian came on or when Brittany came on frame, we're working on smoothing out that transition. You can see a tiny bit of, I don't know what you would call it, searching, where the face tracking is picking up the new frame and then deciding on where to position them in the frame based on the reframe setting you have. So we're working on that, and that should get smoother in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely just part of the process of updating and bug fixing and just making everything just more smooth. So,
all right, Christian, I'm gonna do a little bit of rapid fire with you.
Okay.
Will the Arc 2 be firmware upgradable?
Yes.
Perfect. Will the follow focus be controlled by an app?
Definitely.
Okay, and how would they use that in the app?
So in the follow focus, you're going to have full control over pan and tilt and slide and focus as well. So anything that you can do on the device itself, you should be able to do in terms of real-time movements on the app. So.
Okay. Then also, like, I do a lot of time-lapse, and if I wanted to keyframe my focus during a time-lapse, say, I have this anecdote of flower to mountain, where I want to do a time-lapse from a flower during the day and to the stars at night. Is that possible?
Yeah. In the keyframing modes, you'll be able to start a shot looking at one direction with one focus point, and switch to your next keyframe, and it'll be a further distance and a different direction. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Can the Arc 2 follow focus be controlled remotely?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's just through the app.
That's
so
just
it's
through
wireless
the app.
through Bluetooth.
Yep. So your device is gonna talk to the Arc 2 unit over Bluetooth. So you're gonna have full control there. So
awesome. Face tracking via the app. Which smartphone is best? Which requirements should the internal camera have? Does it work in low light conditions?
Yeah, we've tested it out in very bright conditions, lower light conditions, and we found that there is definitely some edge cases where it's a little bit difficult for the camera to follow a face specifically, but most of the time it's working well. If you can see it through the camera on your phone and you can see a face clearly, the camera and the app can probably see the face clearly too.
What about like iPhone models? We have a lot of the newer phones because we're developing on this. Let's say I have an iPhone 7. Is face tracking still working fine in that phone? Yeah,
we've been doing all of our development primarily focused on iPhone 7s and up. Okay. So we've been looking at the 7s, the 8s, the 10s, and soon to be 11s or whatever that happens to be.
Cool. Very good. Let's see here. Can it record and repeat an automatic tracking movement? I'm not even sure what that means necessarily.
It sounds like they're asking if you can record a movement for face tracking, which in that case, no. Because face tracking is a very real-time live. So no, you wouldn't be able to record that. As for other movements recording, that is definitely a possibility. It's probably not going to be out on launch, but we're looking at that.
Very good. All right, Christian, thank you. Yep. This was on a whim. We literally came and got you out of your office today.
Yep.
So thanks for being a good sport, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I'll take the rest of the questions from here.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care.
How do you set up Arc 2 to perform Holy Grail time-lapse? How do you control the interval? Is Arc 2 sturdy enough for you to check exposure without adding wobble to the sequence? That is a great question. So if you guys have been following our progress of Light Lapse, it is an iOS app that allows you to connect to your DSLR over Wi-Fi. And what it does is it gives you control, or gives us control over the ISO and the shutter speed. And in that you can set your max shutter speed, and that basically sets your interval. And it's a fixed interval throughout the time lapse. If it was a variable interval and you were doing it with a motion control unit, the motion would not look smooth. That's why we have it to be a fixed interval. In regards to checking exposure, you're able to check exposure on your phone remotely. So you don't really need to worry about wobble because your phone can be right next to you, next to the time lapse. Can it be used in slave mode so I can use a separate timer to trigger it, for example, LRT Pro Timer 2.5 and Q DSLR dashboard? Not yet. We kind of want to get the features out there and get your feedback and see what you guys want. We never had that feature on Motion, but if we get enough people asking for it, it's a possibility. Can we have time lapses continue at the end of travel? So the Arc 2 makes its move and settles to its finished position, but the camera controlled by Arc 2 continues to take photos. With Arc 1, whenever the move was done, so was the time lapse. What kind of, well, let me answer that question first. This is one that we've debated about internally, and honestly, I don't know why you would continue taking photos after the movement is done. This might be the same person that keeps asking this question. So maybe reach out to support again if you watch this and let us know why you want that feature. No, it's not a feature right now, but let us know why, and maybe it makes its way onto the roadmap. What kind of waypoints control will we have? Can we ramp up speed and slow down between keyframes and smooth the whole motion? How many keyframes can we have? On launch, we will have 2 keyframes. Shortly thereafter, we're adding multiple keyframes up to 5, and we're still working out how the motion engine and smoothness works in this regard. So on launch, you'll have a smoothness value for the whole move, which is kind of equivalent to ramping. And then as we work our way through firmware updates and app updates, we might have more control, being able to control the ramping between individual keyframes or individual axes. We'll have to see. This is what we want your feedback on after you get your unit. How is it different from Arc 1? What's the setup time compared to the first Arc? Great question. So Arc 1 was just a little panning device, and it's a single axis. And it's not standalone. It means that it has to be used with the motion controller. So the major thing is that the head itself is 2-axis. The battery life is better. It has actually the same screen on it, but now it has Bluetooth control, which allows you to set up a move using your phone, or use automatic face tracking, or use the joystick on it and be able to do a pan or tilt move, where you can basically replace your fluid head and only need one electronic fluid head with Arc 2. So there's a lot of positives on it. Setup time is extremely fast. So it actually uses its motor to mount to a tripod or to a slider. So you don't have to sit there and spin the whole thing on, which is always a pain. Yeah, so all in all, one other thing to mention is that it has a 501 plate receiver built into it. So you don't need to mount on a separate quick release ball head. It basically has that built into it, which is also very nice. And with the camera mounting tool, it makes it even easier because you don't have to fumble around for coins or a key to mount that 501 plate to your phone. That is actually built in to the tilt arm itself. Let's see here. Is the Arc 2 weatherproof? So all of our products, they've never really been weatherproof. They're not weather sealed like a high-end Canon camera body is, but they're designed to be used in a, let's say, not like a drizzle. I mean, you don't want to be filming in the rain in this gear. You'd need to put, a waterproof cover over it if that was the case. But, if you get some condensation during the night, it's not going to hurt it. Could we control the follow focus with any camera? I don't quite understand that, but I think you're asking what kind of compatibility does Rhino Focus have? And we designed Rhino Focus to work with, it's kind of a hard design problem because you have small camera bodies with the new DSLRs and then larger prime lenses that you put on them. And then you also have larger camera bodies with, you could put a smaller lens on it. So it will work with a small body with a large lens and up to a red height with a smaller lens. So it should cover probably, this is just absolute BS, 95% of lenses. Great question. We'll create a support article for that and go over some of the gear that we have and give you more detail on that. So I'm just BSing that answer right now. The previous model seems to skip when panning quite a bit, even when used with light loads. Are the motors more robust on this model? I need something I can 100% rely on in the field. That is a great question. So we have had a few issues with Arc, and it's actually not a hardware issue, it's a firmware issue. Arc is driven by motion, so it's the firmware on motion, and we've released a new firmware upgrade that addresses that problem. So look through our support articles and find that, and that should fix your Arc 1 problem. With your question about heavy loads, this system was designed from the ground up to use heavier cameras on. That's also why the price is higher. That's why we have more features, is because you can put up to a 15-pound camera. Arc 1 was rated for a max of 7 pounds. And now we're adding tilt onto that also. So the motors that we're using, honestly, there's an insane amount of torque on tilt and pan, and with the new high torque motor, you're going to be able to rely on this 100%. Okay, what is the maximum payload? Maximum payload is 15 pounds on the Arc 2 unit. What is the fastest it can move degrees per second? Pan is 19 degrees per second. Tilt is 7.5 degrees per second. And this is just with some of our preliminary testing. We will most likely be able to push these a little bit faster if necessary. We still need to dig into that and see what the limitation will actually be. So that's kind of a for now answer. Does it have auto shutdown? Yes. So after the unit is idle and not in a move for 15 minutes, it will automatically power itself off to save battery. Can you show the speed difference between both motors? Great question. I don't have a setup to show you right now. We will create a video to show you what actual footage looks like between the two. The high torque motor is significantly slower than the high speed motor. It's basically reduced by a factor of 5 to get the torque that we need to be able to go vertical. So it's 5 times slower. So you get 1 inch per second on the high torque, you get 5 inches per second on the high speed. Now, during an actual move, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. 1 inch per second is a decent speed. What sucks about it is when you're setting up a move and going through different keyframes, it can be kind of slow. So I would only really recommend the high torque motor when I'm doing any kind of incline or vertical. If I'm not doing that, I'm gonna resort to the high speed motor because it makes setup time faster. How long will it run off its batteries on a remote shoot? Can you run the unit on AC power? Is there a way to power the Arc 2 externally in case it dies during a shoot? Are batteries user replaceable? Great question. We're currently in the middle of battery testing right now, so I'm gonna hold off on answering that. We've been saying 4-hour runtime, but it all depends on how many axes you have powered up. If you just have pan and tilt running on Arc 2, you're gonna see longer than that. If you're powering focus and motor, you're gonna see shorter probably. If you're running your camera off Arc 2 itself using a Rhino power adapter, even shorter. So we will have those. I'm not sure it will be, let's just say we'll update the video description with that link when it's out. So if it's not there, wait or email support and we can get that information over to you. The question about powering it externally, yes. So you can use the power adapter to power it, plug it into a Goal Zero battery. That's what we like to use. And yeah, you can run it from an external main. Are batteries user replaceable? No. If they die, we can replace them, if the battery actually dies over the life of the product. And if you're out of warranty, we only charge the actual cost of the product. So it's like $11 plus shipping. Not a big deal. Can I use just the high torque motor for non-panning, non-tilting slides without the 4-axis attached? Great question. No. You need Arc 2 to be able to power the motor. Will the app work for just side to side? So the way the app works with keyframe mode is that you're able to set keyframes, and if you don't want any pan, tilt, or focus, you don't have to change that value in the keyframe mode. If you just want to slide, it will work just fine. Have you integrated Holy Grail time-lapse support for Panasonic cameras? Great question. Not yet. It is on the roadmap, but we don't have a timeline for that. What is the biggest lens body combo you have tested with Arc 2? Would it be able to move a 70-200 and a full frame body? So you need to watch our Kickstarter video because we had a Red Epic, giant battery, and an Atlas anamorphic lens. It's about 15 pounds, but it's huge. And it worked pretty damn well. So you will be just fine with your 70-200 and your Canon. Let's say you even have a 1DX Mark II. You'll be fine. All right, on to general questions. Why did you discontinue the Evo line? Rhino Motion Arc. That is a really good question. So the vision for Arc 2 is that it's one system that you can slide, you can pan, you can tilt, you can focus. It's advanced. You have app control, Bluetooth control, you have control over Holy Grail time-lapse. And so the way that the system is set up is it's one basically brand new system that we're going to build off of. And the old product, you couldn't attach to a phone over Bluetooth. And so our strategy moving forward is based off the brand new Arc 2 system for our ecosystem. Will you have a lower cost version in the future? Probably. I can't officially announce anything or promise anything, but know that we are exploring alternatives that will basically be the replacement of what the original Motion and Arc was. What's next on Rhino's radar? Anything new in the works you can share? Great question. Right now, we're really focused on Arc 2, and we're really focused on supporting that well and coming out with new features for Arc 2 with the iPhone app. Christian and I have talked a lot about doing deep space photography, photographing nebula, using your phone setup and using Google Sky's API to be able to find objects and then have Arc 2 be able to track them and take long exposures of things super far off in space. I don't know if we're going to do that, but we're able to with the new system. So we want to explore really fun things like that. Augmented reality is another thing I want to explore. Being able to use and harness the power of the phone to make Arc 2 even better. Can't really divulge too much there, but we're testing a lot of stuff. So let's just say that Arc 2 is really our roadmap moving forward and servicing it and coming out with killer features. Have you considered a turntable option so we can do 360 product shots? Not really. We've seen other companies do that, and I guess we haven't done it because we haven't had the question asked before. So if more of you are watching this and you want a turntable option for a product, let us know. Are you just a slider company now, or are there other products in the works? Your handheld rig shook up the industry, and I would love to see your take on a gold mount charging system, a mobile laptop downloading station, camera cart accessories, just more cool stuff for me to give you money for. Well, I appreciate the fact that you want to give us more of your money. Very honored to hear that. Right now, I'm going to answer it with the same question. Arc 2 is our roadmap right now. Moving forward, who knows what we're going to come out with. There's always tons of ideas floating around. I don't want to share too many of them right now, but stay tuned and give us your thoughts. Tell us what you want. Social media, support, let us know. Have you guys explored using curved rails? No. Curved rails are, in my opinion, very limiting. because the radius of the rail limits you to a fixed center point. And so it works great. Let's say it was the one man crew by Red Rock Micro, I believe. It had a fixed radius. It was a giant, looked like a giant piano basically you carry with you, a giant suitcase. But it was only for 6 feet away. And so I feel like that's quite limiting. So with a slider shot where you're panning with arc or tracking with automatic phase tracking or just setting up a 2-point move, your focal point is changing, but I feel like it's much more versatile than having a curved rail, which does limit you. Are you going to ever release a pan tilt system for Rove? Great question. Like I said before, Arc 2 is our focus right now. Rove nothing's currently in development yet, but who knows? Something could happen later. Any future wireless features on the products? Not that I know of. We use Bluetooth to control Arc 2 via your phone, and we use Wi-Fi from your phone to your camera to do Holy Grail time-lapse. There's no Wi-Fi built into Arc 2, if you're wondering that, so it's just limited to Bluetooth for right now for motion control. Are you going to be coming out with your own stabilizer or gimbal? So, 30-second story time. The answer is no. We did look into it in the past. We actually acquired a small Seattle company and thought about launching their product with our design aesthetic, and it never really came to market. It didn't pan out. DJI is a huge force in this industry. They've basically forced out FreeFly and a number of other gimbal companies because they're $1 billion company. And honestly, I don't want to compete with that. We're a small mom and pop company, and I like sliders. I like niche accessories. So sorry on that. No go. Love all of your YouTube videos. Will you be posting more? Or have you considered creating a Rhino community where you share work with other creators made with Rhino products? That's a great question. So yes, we're currently building out a studio in our office space so that it makes it very easy, and also we don't have to film in the middle of a warehouse like this. So yes, we'll be posting a ton more videos all around how to use Arc 2 and what kind of creative shots you can get with it. Great idea for the Rhino community. I'm gonna look into that. The community is really everything that we have at Rhino, and so it'd be great to connect all those Rhino fans together, whether it's a Facebook group or we just post all of your videos on a YouTube channel. We'll chat about that internally. If you have any ideas, let us know in the comments. How many feature films have used Rhino equipment? So none that I know of. There have been a lot of mini-series, Deadliest Catch, Sons of Anarchy. Philip Bloom used all of our stuff on, what was the BBC broadcast that he did? I'm spacing right now. Okay, Philip has used our stuff all over the place. But I don't know of any actual feature films. Most feature films use very large setups and dollies, not necessarily sliders that have limited load capacities. We can hold it to 15 pounds. We can't hold a 65-pound rig. All right, last question. Why did you pick Rhino for a name? So I don't know if you guys know this, but this is kind of my claim to fame, is that we originated the selfie stick. We were the first company to come out with a pole that you'd put a camera on and you'd film yourself. That was way back in 2010. We called them Pro Poles, and they were made for GoPros. And it was a really dumb idea, but we're like, hey, it's kind of like a long giraffe neck. Let's call it like giraffe. And we quickly realized that was stupid. And so I think giraffe got us started on African exotic animals. And so we quickly, one of the values of the company is that we make really high quality gear. And we thought of a rhino. And we said, dude, what's tougher than a rhino? And those things are badass. So thus, Rhino was born. But we switched very quickly from the blue cartoon Rhino logo to what now is a more subtle, classier logo. So thank you guys for all of your questions. I haven't edited this yet, so this might be like a half-hour, 40-minute video. We'll see what the end runtime is. But thanks for sticking with us. If you have more questions, comment below, email to support@rhinocg.com, and thanks for watching.